Hi, my name is Karaleigh Garrison, and I am a self-care coach for burnt out moms. And I am so excited to be here today to share with Pearl.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under. Ain't it funny how there ain't no rain or clear? Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't no shade.
Hey everybody, it's Pearl. Welcome back to another conversation with Pearl. And we're all about self-care here today, always on the episodes that we do. And today is no exception. But those of you that are moms, my CEO moms, as I like to call you, I want you to grab your favorite drink, sit down, put your feet up, get a notepad, because you're going to want to take some notes today from our amazing guest. Her name is Karaleigh Garrison. She is a singer, songwriter, podcast host of Seeking Sunshine, a self-care coach for those burnout moms. She has 3 special need kids and loves to use her experiences as an ambitious, busy mom to help overwhelmed women find themselves in motherhood. So get ready, because here we go. Hi, Karaleigh. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
So happy to have you. So tell us, singer-songwriter and then coach as well. So tell us about your music background. Has it always been something you've done since you were younger? Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a singer. That was all I wanted to do. When I went to college, I actually intended to be in the School of Music. And so I auditioned. And actually, I guess I should back up. I was always chubby. And so I never thought that I could make it in music, except for in one area, and that was opera. So I studied opera as a teenager. And so then when I went to college, I was like, okay, I'm going to go do the music program for opera. And then I didn't get in. And within that same semester, I met and married my husband. And then we started having kids. And then we had, for the next decade, we had 3 kids. They all have autism spectrum disorder, among other things. And then I actually went back to school a decade later to finish my degree. And again, I auditioned for the School of Music. And again, I didn't get it. And it was like, they let like 3 to 5 people in a year. Like they let almost nobody in. And I was so close, but they didn't let me in. And it was really, really devastating at the time. And as a big plus size mama, I was like, how am I ever supposed to, live this musical dream that I've had my entire life? It felt like the end of the world. But it took like 6 months. Like I couldn't sing for like 6 months. I was so just poured up over it. But I began to write my own music, which I never would have done if I had stayed in opera. And so now I've got 5 singles that are released. I did my Christmas album, and my big album should be out in the next couple months. And it's like I never would have ever like got into the writing my own music and learning all those things that I've had to learn to do that over the last few years, and to really deep dive into what music I wanted to share with the world. Because when you do opera, you just do stuff that other people have written. But a lot of my music that's coming up in my album is about, the heartache of being a mom with special needs kids and trying to battle that, right? And so I think it's actually turned out so much better for my life, because now I'm able to write music that's really impactful.
So not getting in turned out to be a good thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So tell us, so you've got 5 singles out and you've written those songs yourself, you said, correct?
Yep.
And so by doing that, and with your like you take your life experiences usually in music, right? So have you taken some of the life experience of not getting in and created music as well out of that? Because I think it's really powerful what you said was that,
Oh, yeah.
even though I didn't get in, I still went after my goal.
Yeah. And it definitely takes time to process that grief of what you thought life was going to look like. And you have to, allow yourself that time and then get back up on that horse and keep going, even if it's in a different direction. One of the songs that I wrote, I think it was the one of my last couple singles that I released around the middle of the year last year is called Wait. And it says, what if it doesn't have to look the way I thought it did? What if I can still change the world just in a different kind of way? So,
I love that. I'm gonna okay, so you're gonna have to send it to me so we can share it with everybody on the podcast because I think that's a powerful.
yeah, it's everywhere. It's on
Yeah,
Spotify, it's on Apple Music. You can just look up Karaleigh Garrison, Wait. And what's funny is I have a unique name, right? Karaleigh. It's Kara. Karaleigh, who just goes by Karaleigh. So you have to look up Karaleigh
that's awesome.
Garrison.
I just love that that you're sharing that because like you said, like weights, it's so powerful to to we don't always get our dreams, right? Everything doesn't come always the way we want it to, right? And what I think is really
Yeah,
cool is you didn't let that stop you, right? Like you said, it's not going to stop me from doing what I want to do, what I know in my heart I want to do, right? And I
yeah,
think that's so powerful that and it's a lesson to say, listen, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to stop you from going after that goal that you want. And and that's here
yeah.
on the podcast. That's what we talk about. It's like don't let somebody like you could have easily said, "Oh, I'm not going to get in. I'm done with my music career," right? But no, you said, "Wait a minute. How can I pivot this? How can I find really what I want inside?" And like you said, you know, you had this perception that was given across you that because of your weight, you had to go do opera. When really inside you, that inner child was like going, I don't want to do opera. I want to do something different.
You know, it's so true. When I was in middle school, I wrote songs all the time. And then, things happened and someone told me it wasn't good. And actually, I had this really big thing. I wrote a song when I was 14 and I made a music video and I had the instruments and I recorded it. And it was this big, huge deal for me. And I had my friend help me film a music video for it. And we put it on YouTube. And I didn't even know how to use YouTube. This was like way a long time ago. And I got a lot of really, really negative feedback from internet trolls on my little 14-year-old video telling me I look like a whale and I should not even be alive and just like really, really horrific stuff. And I didn't write music again for another, almost another decade.
Wow. And and you're not alone. Like you're not the only one that's gone through that. And and that's what's I'm 58 years young. We did not have social media. We didn't have cell phones. I mean, I had pagers my first job that I had. And all this stuff that's out there, like what you said, that you stopped writing because somebody was putting in our head, and I was talking about another podcast where we need to do a better job as adults, as parents, as leaders, mentors, teachers to start teaching our children that positive affirmation that no matter what, like with you, Karaleigh, that you said, I'm going to go after this. I'm going to become who I want to be. I don't care what you say, you trolls. This is who I'm going to be. And oftentimes I remember my kids, my oldest is forever 25 and my youngest is 23. And I used to tell them, I don't care what anybody tells you, do what you want to do. Go after whatever your dream. And if somebody's telling you no, I'll go. Let me go talk to that teacher, and they knew I would, but they wouldn't let me in times. And I think we need to do more of that. I was sharing that, all this stuff. I love watching moms and dads like on TikTok having conversations with their kids about how great they look. Like that little girl who's in the little robe. I've been talking about that all day today, where she gets up and goes, I don't know. I don't do negative today. It's like, that's what we need to empower our children with because there's so much stuff that affects their mental fitness.
Oh, absolutely. And then there's a really important point I want to make here. It's that there's this duality. of like, you are incredible right now as you are. And you get to keep growing and you get to keep improving. There's this thing that I think it was Ed Sheeran said that he compared his music to going to a cabin in the woods that he hadn't been to in months and months and months. And when you first turn on the tap, the water's all yucky and brown and sludgy, right? And if you give it like 30 seconds or whatever, eventually the water comes out clear. And he was comparing that to his songwriting ability. Like the first, however many songs he wrote were terrible. And it took a lot of practice and it took a lot of learning and growth to get to the gems that we hear today. And so, like, yeah, maybe my song I wrote at 14 was not the most, it wasn't my best, right? Here I'm 32. And it's like, I think I write better songs now than I did when I was 14. I hope I do. And yet the value of that song still exists. Like, it still was an amazing thing that I did, but I still had the potential to get better.
And I love that reminder, the duality, that we can improve, that we're just as good as we are today, and we're going to become even better tomorrow and the next day and the next day. I love that you said that. That's so powerful. So, Karaleigh, tell us about your children, because I know they're a very big part of your story. So tell us about your kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have three special needs kids. They are 12, 11, and 8. My oldest and youngest are high functioning autistic, meaning that they can talk, right? They can kind of function. My oldest really struggles with executive functioning stuff and ADHD. She's in 7th grade and she's really struggling with. She just wants to read all the time. She doesn't want to do anything else except for read all the time. Which, often in life we have to do other things than the things that we really want to do. But she's very, very calm. She's very much the people pleaser, almost to her own self detriment. And then my second, Joshua, is 11. He is severely autistic. He is semi-verbal, and he is type 1 diabetic. And I will quickly share a little story about him just because it's one of the most amazing stories you'll ever hear. When Joshua was 7 years old, he was entirely, completely nonverbal. He didn't have a single that meant something. And this was after, we were doing 4 hours a day of therapy on top of school. Like, we had so much that we could not pack in any more therapy, and it was not helping his speech. Like, he just had nothing. And we had spent years praying and praying that he'd get his voice back. He'd be able to speak. I guess I say back, he never could talk, but he'd be able to talk, right? And it came to the point where I actually gave up. And I said, I can't keep hoping that he's going to talk one day. It's tearing up my mommy heart to just keep hoping that this is going to happen. And I kind of gave up. And then in October of the year he turned 7, which was 2018, he almost died. He got really sick, and I won't go into the whole thing, but he was hospitalized for 3 days, and he was in diabetic ketoacidosis and was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. He looked like a skeleton. He was literally like, it was, we can't even look at the pictures of him now without like just tearing up, because he just was so close to death. It was such a traumatic time for our family. And he came out of that and went back to school, and within a month he could say all of his colors, and his speech rapidly increased from that moment on. And now we're here 4 years later, and my biggest stressor is that he never shuts up. He talks and talks and talks, and he's usually in my face. And don't get me wrong, he still struggles with childhood apraxia of speech, so he can be hard to understand, and he perseverates on like one thing over and over and over again. But he talks so much, and it's this incredible miracle. And it's really helpful to look at when he's driving me insane, because he literally will not stop talking. It doesn't matter how I respond to him, it just keeps on going. And usually the things he wants are like things he can't have. Like, I want grandma and grandpa's birthday to be today. Like, I want it to be the next month already. And I'm like, I can't like make these things happen, right? But it helps so much that I have this gratitude for his voice that equally drives me insane. But it's a huge gift. So he's my guy who's going to be with me forever. He's the one where when people tell me, oh, enjoy motherhood while they're young because, they'll turn 18 and move out. And I'm like, no, not all of them. Maybe my other two, but not Joshua. No, he'll be with me forever. And then my youngest is Benjamin, and he's 8, and he's also high functioning, and he struggles with violent behavior issues. And if you're familiar with ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, he used to have that diagnosis, and then they changed it when he was diagnosed with autism to something called PDA, which is pathological demand avoidance, which is basically the same thing as ODD, except for it's like anxiety based, and apparently one of them's on the autism spectrum and one of them's not. And yeah, he's a handful. He's been in a behavior unit at school for violent behavior for the last year and a half, and he's on his way out, and I'm hopeful that it's going to be a good transition. But yeah, they all have their own unique struggles and their own unique needs. And at any given day, one of them's harder than the others. It literally changes from day to day.
So every day is an experience for
Oh
you.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So my nephew has been diagnosed, I think high functioning as well, and I watch my brother and my sister-in-law like navigate that. Right. So I can imagine 3, like how you navigate that. And I have a friend, when we get done, I'm going to share her information with you. Her name is Jennifer Bro, and she's a travel expert, and she helps families travel with children of unique needs. So I'll
That's
have to connect you
awesome.
guys. Yeah. And so we talk often about, because she's got 2 young boys herself. And so like that navigating that, Karaleigh, because I know you're also a self-care coach. So talk to us about how Karaleigh and your husband, how you guys navigate that. Because like you said, if one's not on, the other one's like, it's like a
It's always
constant,
something.
right? Yeah.
Well,
So
and there's a huge piece of this puzzle that I haven't mentioned yet that's pretty important. My husband's been disabled for the last decade. My husband has severe chronic PTSD, debilitating anxiety and depression. He's got a condition called familial episodic ataxia, which makes it so he collapses when he's under too much stress, and it becomes a big episode, and it takes hours or days for him to recover from it. He has chronic back pain. He has all these different things. He was diagnosed with ADHD at like 32, and then recently came to realize that he's probably on the autism spectrum too, which falls right into line, makes lots of sense, right? As an adult, to look back on your life and go, oh my gosh, that is what makes my life make sense all of a sudden, because there's so many adults now whose kids are being diagnosed and all of a sudden they're going, whoa, that sounds like me, and how much I've had to cope with and deal with, and I didn't have any help, right? And so for so we've been married 14 years now, and about 10 of that he was disabled and couldn't work, and I was his caretaker as well, because he couldn't vacuum, he couldn't do the dishes, or he'd collapse. He walked with a cane. He was constantly We had a whole year where he was admitted to the hospital once a month for something different. Like once it was asthma, once it was a migraine that made him paralyzed through his whole body, and we just had like thing after thing after thing. Um, and now, thankfully, he's gone through this pretty amazing healing transformation. He got off of 12 different medications and switched to medical cannabis. He very slowly taught his body how to move again, and he doesn't walk with a cane anymore. And he's been able to work for about the last 6 months. And so that's been a really amazing transition for our family, which is kind of funny because at the same time, we've had this entire decade with both of us on the kids all the time. There were 2 parents at home all the time because he was disabled. And don't get me wrong, being disabled, I don't recommend it. It's not for the faint of heart. And like, I couldn't work because was his caretaker and the kids' caretaker, and I was losing my mind trying to do all of that. And so, I mean, we were broke forever, right? So I don't recommend it. But looking at the blessings of it, he was there with me every step of the way with the kids. You know, he was there right with me as much as he could possibly be. And that was actually a huge gift in a lot of ways. And so you ask about how, and that is the question, right? Like, how did I keep my sanity? How was I able to do that through everything that we've been through, which it's really been quite a roller coaster ride. And so that's what I've been trying to hone in and define as I'm starting my self-care coaching business so that I can help other people do what I've been able to do. And there's a few really key things. This is videotaped, right? So I do my hair and my makeup every single morning. I don't miss the day because that is my sanity time. I take about an hour every morning and I do my hair and my makeup and I drink my protein shake and I listen to something uplifting every morning. I did this when I was in labor, ready to go to the hospital to deliver my son. I do this when I'm sick. I do this. There's a handful of times when I've not, and I never feel like myself. This is what I've done since before I ever had kids. Is I take that time for me, and I know that for the majority of moms, like doing your hair and your makeup is not an important thing to you, but you have to find the thing that does. You have to find the unique thing that feeds your soul. What makes you feel good? What makes you feel like you? And take the time out of your day to feed you first so that you then have something to give. And there's been so many times where the days have just been utterly chaotic. And because I had that recharge time, I was able to get through it. And it's been interrupted. It's frequently interrupted. It's not just like I get an hour by myself with no one here. No, no, it gets interrupted, but that's my time. And sometimes they watch TV and sometimes they sleep in too long and sometimes, whatever happens. But I get to have that time for me and I make that an absolute priority.
I love, okay, so I want to unpack that. You shared so much there. So as a mom who doesn't have children with special needs, like your three beautiful children, and then you add on your spouse. I mean, my grandfather, God rest his soul, used to tell my mother, there's sainthood in heaven for you because she took care of my granny who had Alzheimer's really bad. So, Karaleigh, there's sainthood in heaven for you right now. I'm going to repeat that for my grandfather. But to know, like, to see you smiling through that, to see you so genuinely share that story and for the listeners that are listening to understand that, and if you go on YouTube, you'll see her beautiful smile where she loves herself and she understands that to take care of three children with special needs and her husband who had disabilities, she had to make time for herself. And that's what we talk about every week in our community of women at the Cheer League is that you have to put your cape on first. If you do not put your cape on first, you can't do like Karaleigh's been doing and take care of her family. Most of us don't even have those added challenges that Karaleigh has. Some of you may have only one child with special needs. Some of you may have a spouse that's got disabilities. And you sit here and listen, and I hope you're inspired by her to say, put your cape on first. Even though she might get interrupted, she still makes the time to do her makeup. For her, for Karaleigh, that's important. That's her self-care. That's her pouring into herself, you guys. And then she says, I go through and I do things for myself. And if I get interrupted, I go back and finish. That's perfect. And, Karaleigh, I often talk here on the show that we have what we call CEO moms. I don't like the word working from home mom or stay at home mom because I don't know any mom that's sitting around eating bonbons in a house all day long. You are running a business.
So true.
Yes, you're right. And I give credit to my sister-in-law, Melissa, for that all the time because you are running a business of a house. So here is Karaleigh running the business of the house. She's got 4 people besides herself that she needs to take care of, all while you guys, income is not there. Like she's having to make sure her family gets what she needs. And then she has a child that ends up in the hospital, like what she explained her middle child is. If you take nothing from today, is that I don't care what life throws at you. I don't care. Listen, I lost my son last July in a tragic accident, and he watched me every day that he was here on earth, put myself first, and would ask me often, Mom, how do you do that? You've had friends that have been terrible to you. You've had my father who became racist, I had to cut out of my life. I've had things happen. And I tell him what I'm telling every one of you, and Karaleigh is an example, is that I have to put my cape on first. I have to take care of me first, or I can't take care of my husband, my family, all those things that I love to do, including coaching the women that I coach. I can't. And that's, Karaleigh, what we talk about in our Shiro League every Sunday evening from 8 to 9 p.m. We talk about finding our joy, putting our cape on first. If you can't, how do you make it happen? We even talk about, and I'm sure I'm going to ask Karaleigh this question, is how do you do self-care with your children? Because maybe she can't get back to going maybe Karaleigh was meditating and the kids are just so rambunctious or they need her that she can't go back to meditate. So Karaleigh, share with us, how do you incorporate self-care with your children at the same time?
Oh, you absolutely have to. As someone who's got special needs kids, you cannot have self-care be reliant on who can give you a break. And if that's what your self-care looks like, you need to learn to do better, because you have to be able to do it where you're at right now. Right? And so we learn, right, how to ignore, how to put out fires, and then make sure everyone's good so that we can take time for ourselves. Does that make sense? Like, get everyone set up. And sometimes that doesn't work. And sometimes you just have to give them the attention that they need. But like a lot of times I do my meditation with the TV on and my kids running around. Like it can be just like a 2-minute meditation. All meditation like really is just taking a second for you to not be doing something else. Like just sit in silence for 2 minutes. Like, and not even in silence in your mind, where you're not planning something, you're not doing something, you're not being productive. Take 2 minutes to not be productive, right? And just be. Take time to appreciate just being, just breathing. And you can do that if there's chaos all around you. And sometimes we have to learn how to do that. And we have to be able to tune them out and as much as possible. And the first thing that I teach my people that I coach in self-care is self-worth. Because if you do not have that basis of self-worth, the rest of this is going to be like pulling teeth. It's going to be really, really hard to care for yourself if you don't first think that you are worth it. And so my question has been, how do you increase your self-worth? How do you actually do that? Like, that's like a really hard question, right? Well, I actually have an answer for you, and the answer is actually self-care. It's this. I have this really great analogy of like somebody asks you to watch their plant or their dog or whatever, and you dog sit for a week, and you care for this dog, and you do all the things, you feed it, you bathe it, the poops in your house, you have to clean up the carpet. I dog sat a 9-week-old husky, and it was an absolute nightmare. So that's what I'm going back to with this. And you go through and you care for it. If you're talking about a plant, you're watering that plant every day. You're noticing how beautiful its leaves are as you walk by it, because it's kind of new, right? And as you do these things to care for it, you grow to love it. And you do the same thing with your kids, right? You nourish their bodies, you feed their souls, you read to them, you feed them, you bathe them, and you do all these things, and you love them because of how much you care for them. So the more that you care for you care for your body and you care for your brain, right? The more that you consistently show up for yourself and care for you, that's how you grow that self-love.
I love that picture you painted. That's such a great picture you painted. Like truly, I mean, and the whole dog, I grew up with huskies, so I get it. But it's so true. It's like, we have to, how do we take care of ourselves before we can take care of others? And you gave those beautiful examples. And, and when we don't, I mean, I often ask, I'll have a woman that I might coach, and she might say, I don't have time to do self-care. I don't have, and I'm like, just sit and watch. My kids were little. I watched Barney with them. That was self-care. I took some time out of my day. They were watching Barney. I didn't care what was on Barney, the purple bear walking around, whatever. But, that's self-care. And so often when they struggle with that, I'm like, okay, next 30 seconds, God decides you're going home. And all your family can say at your eulogy is what they saw you do for self-care. What are they going to say? And if you can't think of at least 5 things quickly, we got work to do, because
Yeah.
you need to be doing something for you. I don't care. Where I am, I'm in Tampa, Florida. And so on my front porch, I have a swing, and I'm right by a school. I've gone out and told the mom to get out of your car and sit on my swing. Get out of the car, that routine of I'm in my car. Oh my God, I got to get the kids and sit on the swing. Switch it up. Like I tell them, women that are here local with me, I'm like, I don't even have to be home. You don't have to ring my doorbell. Just come sit in the swing. Do something as simple as that and for pour into yourself. So I want to switch, Karaleigh, over to here you are, this busy mom, taking care of everybody else, incorporating your self-care, and you decide to start a coaching business around this. Tell us about that and tell us your journey to getting there and how you are helping your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have spent, a decade, right, going through this really, really crazy journey and then going, how do I use what I've been through? How do I use everything that I've learned to help other people? And it took me a really, really long time to figure out what I could possibly do, what that would look like. And I didn't even know coaching was a thing at first, right? It's kind of really exploding these days. And so this is the answer to that. This, I call it my shine method of self care. That's what this is all about. It's about using everything that I am and have been through and survived through to help other women thrive and find themselves in motherhood. One of my very favorite things to talk about in this method, um, it's an acronym, so it's N is for nourish your soul, and that is all about doing what brings you energy. So self-care, it's really, really cliche, right? We have all these like, go take a bath, go get your nails done, go get a massage. Most of those things you have to have like a babysitter for, right? You have to have like someone else watching your kids. That's not an option for me. Like it's really hard to find a babysitter for a severely autistic diabetic kid, right? Even my own family is not willing to watch him, right? They don't live nearby, so it's not even a thing. But I don't have a babysitter. I don't have help. My husband's going, you should get a babysitter tonight. And I'm like, where do I even turn for that? I don't even know where to look, right? So how do you do the self-care without relying on somebody to take your kids away, right? And to have free time, right? You do what nourishes you. What really brings you energy? What really feeds your soul? And the things that feed my soul are music and singing and performing and talking to people. I'm very much um, a people person, being around people, talking to people. I get really, really energized. It really, really feeds me to talk to people and to perform and to be on. It just lights me up. I finish conversations and I'm usually like I finish my podcast interviews and then I go run to tell my husband and I'm so excited to tell him everything that I got to talk to this person about. And you can tell, right? You can tell just in the way I'm talking how much these particular things light me up and bring me energy. And as I am able and look, I have like 3 hours a day while my kids are in school. Like that's the time I have because we have one car and I have to drive my husband to work. So I have not very much time in my day to do those things. But if you choose, a career path that's going to light you up and bring you energy instead of drain you, then when your kids get home and you're back onto mom duty, you have that energy because you gave it to yourself by doing the thing that lights you up. So I have, I've spent a long time figuring out what can I do to help people, but not just there's a lot of ways to serve people, right? Like we could go outside and pick up trash all day long. Does that bring you energy? Doesn't bring me energy. There's a lot of ways to serve people that do not also light you up. So you have to find that middle ground, right? And that's what I've been looking for so that I could, have a business and help support my family in that way, right? How can I do something that is the thing I was meant to do? figure out what that is and use it to help people. So that's what I do with self-care coaching. I love talking to women. I love it. It lights me up. And then I get to help them walk them through all of the things that I have done. So the five steps of my Shine self-care method are: see your self-worth, um, honor your humanity, which is about your body, right? Taking care of your body, all the routines. I is increase your inner wholeness, which is all about mindset and positivity and knowing your boundaries, right? And honoring yourself. N is nourish your soul. And then E is endure in sunshine, which is where my podcast comes into play, which is Seeking Sunshine. It's all about gratitude and looking at your journey from a bigger perspective instead of feeling so stuck in the moment, because your life is going to change. It's not always going to stay this way. And when you can see it from the bigger perspective, a lot easier to not feel stuck and to feel more freedom and to feel that growth that is possible.
I love that Shine method. That is so
Thanks.
amazing. We have what's called a Shiro method for us, and I just love that you share that. And then, you know, like that 3 hour, your time could just be 3 hours, and what you do with those 3 hours is so powerful. It's like maximize that time because, and I love what you said. So I have a friend, Karsten Marie. Her and I always say bubble baths are not, self care is not all about bubble baths, because like you said, you might not be able to sit in a bath because you got kids, right? It's like you have to figure out what works.
I found this amazing quote, and it says something like, it's not chocolates and bubble baths. Those are not real self-care. Real self-care is creating a life that you don't feel like you have to escape from.
Yes, exactly. Like that's so powerful. Creating a life you don't have to escape from. That's so powerful. And you know, my journey is that I was top 5 mortgage broker in my company in Virginia. I was the number 1 female in the company. We moved here to Florida, and it's like 17 years ago, and I was going to be the quote unquote stay-at-home mom, and I hated it. I did not enjoy it. I was doing PTA. I did not enjoy that either. I went to high school with the likes of some movie star kids, and it was nothing but drama. And if you didn't fit in, you know, you weren't nothing. And I didn't enjoy it. And so finally I was like, I got to figure out who I am. And was my journey. I went on to find out that I love to help other women figure out who they are inside, find their voice, go after their passion that they have. And I love, Karaleigh, that's what you're doing as well.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like we are taught as mothers, like in our society, in our culture, that okay, now that you're a mom, that's it. Your identity is just mom. Everything you were beforehand, everything you studied in college, all of your talents and skills, they don't matter anymore because now you're a mom. And every single ounce of effort that you put forth better be in the service of being a mom. If you're not hands-on taking care of your kid, you should be cleaning your house, right? Because that's your identity now. And it's like, no, no, I'm not doing that. That sucks. And you know what? That's what our mothers did. That's what their mothers did. And they were not happy. And then we were able to grow up with moms who didn't care for themselves. And we saw how that turned out. They didn't turn out well. They didn't lead happy lives. They were not fulfilled by motherhood. Motherhood's an incredible thing, but it's okay if it is not the be all end all fulfillment for you.
Yeah, that's why my sister-in-law, that's why I came up with the CEO mom, is I went to go visit my brother and sister-in-law. I think my nephew was 3 or 4 years old. I don't remember his age, but he was young. And she was like, come on, Sean's got to put his clothes away. I'm like, put his clothes away? I'm like, I always put my kids' clothes away. So I'm like, okay, let me go. And she's like, listen, he's not going to put away perfectly, but he's going to learn that the action of he is a part of this home and he has responsibilities. And even like bringing his dish to the sink and things like that. And that's why I was like, so you're running a business here. She's like, yeah, I'm the CEO of this house. I'm like, I'm going to steal that because I think it's powerful. Because like you said, my granny, she did everything. My mom worked out of the house and came home and did everything. You know, my dad was in the service as well, but she did everything. I was like, I don't want to do that. To the point that I watched when my dad was away at war, I would watch my mom and everything she went through. That when I started dating, if somebody said they were in the service, I mean, I have 4 generations of Marines in my family. I was like, thank you very much for your service. I appreciate what you're doing, but we're not going to work out. I don't want to live that life, you know? And so that's at 19 years old, I met my husband and he's like, what do you want to do? Go do what you want to do, And when we had kids, we struggled for 10 years. So yeah, I thought, oh, it'd be cool to stay home with my kids, but I hated it. I wasn't fulfilled. I still went to the football games. I still went to their Boy Scout stuff. I still found time to do those things. But yeah, it's like we have this narrative that we have to, you wear the mom title now. You're in charge. No, you can be fulfilled in and out.
Yeah.
And the thing is even if you want to be that CEO mom and not work out of the house, you can still go after what your goals and dreams are. I mean,
We need
I
to,
go ahead.
sorry, we need to normalize that it's okay for motherhood to not be the thing that lights you up. Like we're expected, right? It's like I actually had this conversation with my husband the other day, and I was like, I was just having this problem, and I was like, but how do I do the things that lights me up when I have all these kids? What if they're the problem? And it's like, what a horrible thing to say. And he was like, but shouldn't they light you up? Shouldn't they be like the answer? And I was like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what everyone thinks. And it's wrong. You can still be an awesome mom and your kids are not the thing that
Right.
lights your soul on fire.
We're doing a thing right now in the Share League. We talked about what brings you joy. And somebody said, my kids bring me joy. I'm like, okay, that's great. My kids bring me joy too, but why do they bring you joy? Like, break me down why your kids bring you joy. As a mother, my kids bring me joy. Don't, hands down, no problem. But why? What is it about them that brings you joy? And for me, I could break it down. Like my youngest, I what brings joy about him is that he's got this old soul. He looks at things with a big world scope and breaks it down to what he thinks is right for him. And for me, that's amazing because that's what I want for my kids to go, is this right for me? Is it not right for me? Right. And then so we're not, no, I don't know, I'm glad we're getting away from that, but we don't have to wear the mom title that's all we are.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
Well,
we
and
do.
what occurs to me is that um what if you are finding fulfillment in motherhood, that's amazing. It's not going to last. Because our kids grow. The stages of motherhood are vastly different. So if you find tons of fulfillment in that newborn stage, soak it up because they're going to be toddlers soon. And you might not find as much fulfillment in the running around destroying everything phase, right? And if you absolutely adore, those preschool days where they're just learning to talk and they're exploring and they're curious about the world, you might not find as much fulfillment in the teenage stage where they don't want anything to do with you, right? And so, yes, find motherhood fulfilling, find the sunshine that is in each stage. But you have to, but eventually for most people, they're gonna move out of the house and then you're gonna be going, wait a minute, my fulfillment's gone because my kids are gone. And you don't want that for your life. Like that happens so often to so many people. You have to know who you are without your kids. Like they're still part of you, they're still part of your story. But you as an individual have to figure out how to find your wholeness and your passion next to them. Not without them, but like next to them.
Yeah, that's so true because like when I moved here, I went through an identity and destiny course for 6 weeks. At the end of the 6 weeks, we had to give our I am statement. And I was still saying I was a wife and mom. And my friend I met in the course, she's like, wait, you still say you're a wife, you still say you're a mom, and you talk all about Matthew. Don't you have another son? And that was an eye opener. I'm like, I sat through this course for 6 weeks and still haven't figured this stuff out. Like, I need to go do something. And that's where I really went on that journey. And I found that I wasn't by myself. I wasn't the only one who thought motherhood and being a wife was the end all. Like that, I knew that I had more than that inside me. And so that was really powerful. Okay, so I'm going to do a shift here. We're having so much fun. Our time's flying by. So we have about 15 minutes at the most, 10, 12 minutes. I want to know, so Karaleigh, right now in the Share League, we've been working on what brings us joy. And so we've been talking about that here right now. And so if I was to say, Karaleigh, give the top 10 things that bring you joy, but I only want to know the top three. What are the top three right now that you can share with us?
Yeah. So can I preface this really quick? I did this thing called the Sparketype test. I think his name is Jonathan Fields. I'm not 100% sure on his name, but it's called this Find Your Sparketype, right? And it's like your personality type, but it's what lights you up, right? And so what mine said, which I already knew, but having it told to me really helped me clarify it. And it was that, so I've always been a creator. I used to have a button business where I made button jewelry. I studied sewing and costume design in college. I'm a maker. I love making stuff with my hands, but I love performing more. So my number one is actually performing, because the reason that I do all the crafts that I make costumes, so I can perform in them. The reason I write songs is so I can perform them. So my very, very number one is performing. I love I love performing. And I think that I'm gonna break that down a little bit and say singing on stage is my number one. That's and as a mom, especially these kids, that is not one I get to do hardly ever. It's kind of rare. I mean, I get to sing in church from time to time. I get to do karaoke from time to time. There's some performances I've gotten to do, but it's not like a regular basis kind of thing. I'm not in the stage of life where I get to do that regularly, but singing on stage is going to be my number one. Number two is going to be performing in other ways, like talking like this to you, talking to people, teaching people, helping people grow and learn, and doing this sort of like teaching is not one of the things that lights me up, but the performance of like, let me tell you my story, let it help you, it lights me up to like be in front of people. So number two is going to be like talking in front of people. All right. And then number three is probably making things. I love making things. And it's funny because they're kind of opposite, because the making things part is very much an internal, quiet, by myself kind of activity, where the other two are very much people, being around people. But I love making things, writing songs, sewing clothes, sewing costumes, just making things.
Those are great examples. And like you said, like that number three is like something just for you, quietly for yourself. I love that. Okay, so now we're going to ask you, what are the top three things you have to put on your not to do list that's keeping you from doing those things that bring you joy?
Okay, so say that again. The top three not to do that are keeping, what are the things I hate doing the most?
Yeah. So that, like, if you had to create a list of things not to do because they're stopping you from finding your joy, what are those? What are the top three?
All right. So number one's going to be like the menial cleaning. When it comes to like organization and decorating, I am on board. Organization and decorating, I've got it. Like, let's clean some stuff out. When it comes to scrubbing the toilets, not a fan. Not actually, my husband cleans the toilets. I don't even do like scrubbing the grime. We had a phase where when my middle son was like 3, he would write poop on the walls, and that was one of the most depressed I've ever been in my life, as I sat there and sobbed scrubbing poop off the walls. Yeah, those are going to be at the bottom of my list. What's really funny is that my anti-spark type, as that guy puts it, is actually like learning things. And what I have found is actually that if it's something I choose, I love it. If I'm learning about how to help women have more self-confidence, if I'm learning about how to do certain things, like if I'm choosing what I'm learning, I love it. If I'm having to learn something I don't want to learn, that one's at the bottom of the list. And then a third thing, um, I struggle with anything I feel like is wasting time. I'm very much a go, go, go type A personality. So, um, just things that I feel like are wasting time. Maybe that used to be driving, but I try to turn driving into productive time by listening to podcasts and listening to classes, right? But yeah, those kind of things.
Those are great examples. I don't like to clean toilets either. I always tell my boys, when you guys get married, your wives will be very happy I taught you how to clean toilets.
Yeah, my kids know how to clean their toilet.
That's so true. So tell us, Karaleigh, what's coming up for you?
Well, right now I'm in the middle of a self-care workshop for those who are in my group for it's called the Shine Self-Care Group for Burnt Out Moms, something like that. Self-care coaching for burnt out moms. That's what it's called. So I'm in the middle of a workshop where I am teaching all 5 parts of the Shine method. And that's been a lot of fun and a lot of work. And I plan to do another one in the next, couple months or so. My podcast comes out weekly, so that's always a thing that's going on. And what's fun is I've been able to put all of the workshop like sessions onto my podcast. So this week's been a special where each one's on my podcast. So if you don't want to miss out on any of that content, which has been so amazing, it's all like right there on my podcast for anyone, because I really want like everyone to be able to have this information, because it's absolutely important. Like the root of all evil is low self-worth, right? Like that is the epidemic that is really attacking our world right now, is low self-worth. So if me sharing this can help people understand that you are worth doing self-care, you are worth all of it, then that's a win, right? So I have myself, so I have my weekly podcast, the Seeking Sunshine podcast. I'm running my coaching business and doing this big workshop right now. And then I actually have my big album is coming out in the next couple months. It's all written, but I actually don't play any instrument. I actually wrote all the instrumentation, wrote all these songs with not a ton of like actual like musicality abilities. And so I have a friend who's going through and doing live instruments for all of my MIDI ones. And so it's going to be like, so everything that's out right now, I did entirely myself, and I'm very proud of it and it's amazing. But when it comes out on the big album, it's going to be so incredible.
We can't wait to see all of that happen. I can't wait. So tell us how everybody can reach out to you.
Yeah, I'm Karaleigh Garrison pretty much everywhere. On Facebook, it's Karaleigh Garrison. On Instagram, it's Karaleigh.Garrison. My website's KaraleighGarrison.com. You can, and everything's on my website. So if you're looking for links for anything, it's KaraleighGarrison.com. It's all right there. I think my YouTube's Karaleigh Garrison. You can find me. My podcast is Seeking Sunshine, but probably if you search for Karaleigh Garrison, it'll come up because my name's fairly unique. That's where I'm at.
Well, it's been so much fun. I can't believe how fast our time has gone by, but we can't finish without you doing the Better Questions, Better Life that we talk about. These cards right here. Awesome. So you can go to betterquestionsbetterlife.com to get your own set. I get no feedback, no money on this. This is just great cards. So I'm going to shuffle them, and Karaleigh's going to tell me when to stop, and she's going to answer the question. So here we go, Karaleigh. Tell me when to stop.
All right, stop.
All right. So Karaleigh, your question is, what am I worth?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. What am I worth? I am worth freaking everything. And you know what? I didn't always believe that. It took a long time to get there. Learning your self-worth is a process. You're not just going to sit here and recite some affirmations and be like, I have worth, I have value, and then just believe it like that, right? It's going to take time. It takes that. You have to nurture yourself to get there. But it's absolutely essential, because everyone else around you becomes better people when you know your self-worth. Like when they see that example of you owning your worth, they can follow it, especially kids. So we cannot force anybody to know their own self-worth, which, goodness, don't we wish we could?
Absolutely,
don't we just
right?
wish we could just like make everybody know their own self-worth? You can't. But what you can do is recognize it in yourself, because then people can follow your example. So I'm amazing. I do a lot, and that's, that's still hard for me to say actually, but I'm amazing. I'm a rock star. I do so many things, and I fail at some things, and that's okay, because I'm a human.
Right. It's so powerful. Yeah. It's okay that when we fall, we fail. It's okay, because there's a lesson to learn in it, right? Mm-hmm. So I just love your answer. That's beautiful. And so I just want everybody to remind everybody that we're going to put all the links for Karaleigh out when we drop this podcast. And also remind you that our Shiro League meets every Sunday evening, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time. You can email me, Shiro@pearl@wsliving.com. Again, pearl@wsliving.com. The word Shiro, and I'll get you all the links. And our retreat is in September. We have a few spots left. Our pajama retreat, Karaleigh, we do a PJ retreat. It's a self-care retreat, no makeup. And we go Thursday the 14th to the 18th. We have a house on the beach in the Gulf Shores of Alabama. So we have a few spots left. So if you want to join us, just go to wslivingretreats.com. Again, wslivingretreats.com. Grab your spot today because you are not going to want to miss out on all the fun we're going to have. And so as we close out the show, like we always do, I want to remind you that we come into this world as this little rough shell of an oyster on the outside, but inside, as you open up, you find your inner pearl to greatness. And I hope each and every one of you go find your inner pearl to greatness. Have a great day.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to live